That, like a lot of people, I saw the Getty images of the pillow dropping behind the skirt, and I thought at first they could be photoshopped, but Getty images is very reliable.
The beginning of that clip where she's like, oh my God, yeah, it's like, it's so inauthentic.
But to the world, it's just, what has she been doing? Does she work? As opposed to, oh my gosh, I work so hard, and I appreciate what hard work looks like. I like working hard.
This is fake. She knows exactly when that happened. The eye search she's got going on there, that's forced and faked, as is the facial expression.
Welcome back to Pop Flash. Today's story isn't just controversial, it's royal chaos like you've never seen before. We're diving into the wild mystery behind Prince Archie's birth, and trust us, the timeline alone will have your jaw on the floor. It all started with a supposedly simple story. Meghan Markle went into labor early in the morning. Hours later, baby Archie was born, and the palace made a formal announcement. Sounds normal, right? But here's the problem. Absolutely nothing about that day adds up. The palace waited almost 12 full hours to notify the media. That's not just unusual, it's unprecedented for a royal birth. By the time the official announcement hit the press, Archie was already here. And yet, there had been no warning, no press alert, and no sign of the traditional royal process the public expects. Even worse, Meghan and Harry's own PR team had promised to notify reporters when labor began. That was their commitment, their words. And then, suddenly, silence. When journalists naturally asked why they hadn't been informed, the palace gave a weird, carefully worded response, one that completely dodged the question and blamed the media for the confusion. Classic damage control, but it wasn't fooling anyone. This wasn't just a timing issue. It was a blatant break from royal tradition, and it kicked off a wave of suspicion that still hasn't died down. Why the delay? Why the secrecy? And why did this royal birth, of all things, feel more like a PR stunt than a historic moment? But just when people thought things couldn't get sketchier, the lies started to surface. During that strange gap between the palace saying Meghan was in labor and the Instagram post announcing Archie's birth, journalists were quick to ask the obvious question, has the baby already been born? And what did palace officials say? They denied it, flat out. Not, we're not sure, not, we'll confirm soon. They said no, even though they knew the truth. Archie had already arrived. This wasn't some innocent mistake or miscommunication. This was a deliberate cover-up, a lie told to the press, and by extension, to the public. And let's be clear, we're not talking about private family matters here. This is the birth of a royal baby, a child in the direct line of succession. This isn't just personal, it's constitutional. By denying the truth, Meghan and Harry broke a level of trust with the public. But even more shocking, the palace went along with it. They chose to protect the Sussexes instead of protecting the credibility of the monarchy, in a world where the royal family's entire power rests on image and tradition. This wasn't just risky, it was reckless, and it left people wondering, if they're willing to lie about something this basic, what else are they hiding? Now here's where things take a sharp turn, straight into American PR territory. A royal birth announcement is usually steeped in British tradition, but Archie's arrival, it looked like it was choreographed for U.S. television. Let's talk about the timing. When Meghan and Harry finally released their big news, the announcement just so happened to line up perfectly with the 8 a.m. time slot in New York, prime time for shows like CBS This Morning. And guess who's a close friend of Meghan's? Gayle King, a top anchor at CBS. Coincidence? That's what the palace wants you to believe. But Dan Wooten, one of the few mainstream journalists brave enough to question this circus, noticed the pattern. He called it out in 2019, pointing to how every major update seemed to benefit the Sussexes' American media game. From the Instagram birth announcement to the Windsor baby photo call, all of it was timed perfectly for U.S. headlines, not British tradition. Even when Wooten asked the palace directly if this was intentional, their response was cold and robotic. No, the timing was chosen based on a family visit to Windsor. But let's get real. Why would a royal photo op, one of the most anticipated events of the year, be scheduled around a private visit? It felt less like royal duty and more like Hollywood PR. This wasn't just suspicious. It was a glaring sign that Meghan and Harry were starting to play by their own rules, not the crown's. But while the media danced around the drama, the real internet detectives were already hard at work. And what they found? It blew the lid off everything. Let's talk about Meghan's bump. One day, her baby bump looked huge. The next, it was nearly flat. Then came the moment that made millions do a double take. A video surfaced of Meghan sitting down, and her stomach appeared to fold. That's right, fold. Almost instantly, social media exploded with speculation. People asked, was it a moon bump? Was she wearing a prosthetic? Was a surrogate involved? Now, whether you believe these theories or not isn't the point. The real issue? Meghan and Harry refused to address any of it. They didn't explain. They didn't clarify. They didn't even deny it. They went completely silent, and that silence spoke volumes. Instead of putting out the fire, they let it burn. And the more they ignored the growing speculation, the more convinced the public became that something wasn't right. To make it worse, mainstream media outlets didn't want to touch the topic. Too controversial, too risky, but that's exactly when real journalism is supposed to step in. Only a few voices, like Dan Wooten, dared to ask the questions the world was already screaming, why all the secrecy? Why all the inconsistencies? And what is the truth? This wasn't just royal gossip anymore. It was a full-on royal mystery, and Meghan's bump was suddenly center stage. But if you thought the bump drama was wild, wait until you hear about the dancing video. That's right, the moment that made even the skeptics raise their eyebrows. While the world believed Meghan was in labor, a video mysteriously surfaced showing her dancing. Not just walking around, she was smiling, moving, and looking completely relaxed. And here's the kicker. This video was released at the exact time she was supposedly giving birth to Archie. How is that even possible? Even people who hadn't questioned the pregnancy timeline before were now asking, hold on, what is going on here? Was it pre-recorded? Was the birth earlier than claimed? Or was the public being played? Even top journalists like Camilla Tominey at the Daily Telegraph covered the story, but refused to question the footage or even acknowledge the inconsistencies. And when critics pushed her, she brushed it off like the very idea was beneath her. That's the problem. When respected journalists act like it's taboo to investigate obvious red flags, public trust goes out the window. This isn't about pushing conspiracies, it's about demanding basic answers to very real questions. If Meghan wasn't in labor when she said she was, then what else about Archie's birth timeline has been manipulated? The truth wasn't just being hidden, it was being erased in real time, replaced with a carefully crafted narrative the public was expected to just accept. And spoiler alert, they didn't. By now, the timeline was shattered, but things only got messier from there. Let's talk about the Instagram post. Instead of a formal royal announcement or a public statement from the palace, the birth of Archie was revealed in the most casual way possible, a filtered Instagram post. Yes, the world found out about the arrival of a royal baby, one in the direct line to the throne, through a social media upload. And here's where it gets even worse. Just minutes before that post went live, reporters had been assured by palace staff that Meghan was still in labor. So when that post popped up, jaws dropped. Not only was the baby already born, but the palace had knowingly lied. They had deliberately denied the truth to the press, even though they had the full story in hand. And what excuse did the palace give when they were pressed for answers? They blamed a technical error? Yes, in the year 2019, surrounded by trained PR professionals and official royal staff. They claimed an email didn't go out in time. That's not just embarrassing, that's insulting. The palace, a symbol of order, tradition, and protocol, was now fumbling basic communication like a poorly managed influencer brand. It wasn't just Harry and Meghan that looked shady, it was Buckingham Palace itself. They appeared confused, disorganized, and worse, complicit. In trying to protect the Sussexes, the crown risked something even more valuable than privacy. It risked credibility, and once that's gone, the royal house doesn't just crack, it crumbles. Now let's dig into the most sacred royal tradition of all, the birth announcement. For centuries, royal births have followed strict ceremonial procedures. The location is confirmed, the attending physician is named, a notice is placed outside Buckingham Palace, letting the world know all is well. But when Archie was born, none of that happened. The palace refused to confirm where Meghan gave birth, even though Harry spoke emotionally about the experience, praising Meghan and describing the moment. The basic facts were missing, and the public, they noticed. Every royal baby before Archie had their birthplace confirmed. So why the sudden secrecy? And then there was the infamous photo call at Windsor Castle, when Meghan and Harry presented Archie to the world. Except this wasn't a normal press event. It was a highly controlled, staged moment, with no outside media access and no spontaneous interaction. And once again, the timing raised eyebrows. The photo op was scheduled at 12:40 p.m. UK time, aligning perfectly with 7:40 a.m. on American morning shows. Coincidence? The palace claimed the timing was to accommodate a family visit to introduce Archie to the Queen and Prince Philip. But let's be honest, who schedules global media events around private family time? It didn't add up. And if there's one thing we've learned in this royal saga, every time the Sussexes say, it's no big deal, it's a huge deal. And here's where the story truly unravels. The truth is, the entire Archie birth saga is riddled with delays, contradictions, and a total lack of transparency. The palace was caught scrambling to cover up inconsistencies, from delayed announcements to conflicting timelines, and bizarre excuses like email failures. Harry and Meghan wanted to modernize the monarchy, but their approach ended up introducing nothing but chaos and suspicion. They acted like celebrities controlling their own narrative. But as members of the royal family, the stakes are much higher. When your child is in line for the throne, privacy isn't just personal. It's a matter of public trust. And by hiding the truth, by lying and denying, the Sussexes and the palace created a vacuum where wild theories thrived. Some claimed Meghan used a surrogate. Others said the bump was fake. More extreme voices questioned if Archie even existed. These rumors didn't come from nowhere. They grew from a refusal to be honest. At the end of the day, the cold, hard fact remains. Meghan and Harry lied. The palace covered for them, and the public is still waiting for the truth. This royal mystery isn't over, and it's clear that until transparency wins, suspicion will continue to rule.